Hello everyone, and today again I'm back with another video on our next lesson, that is the nervous system. Okay, so whenever we say the nervous system, okay, it's a lengthy chapter, but that's why it's now divided into two portions. Okay, the nervous system and the sense organs. So please do not get nervous looking at this chapter. All right, so in this chapter, the nervous system, okay, we will be talking about that. There are many organisms, okay, and all these organisms somehow they become aware of what is going around them, okay, and accordingly they perform all the actions that is required for their survival. So they are being connected with the outer world, and therefore there are many activities which is going inside their body also, and these activities and connection with the outer world and everything that takes place in the body is in a very coordinated manner. So such coordination occurs by two agencies in our body, which we have already discussed before also. That was through our endocrine system, that is our hormonal control, and then we have via our nervous system. Okay, so these are the two types of coordination that takes place in our body. All right, so in case of our nervous system, okay, whenever we talk about our nervous system, we should know that there is need for this nervous system. So why there is need for the nervous system? So usually there is need for the nervous system because it keeps us informed about the outside world, okay, through our special sense organs, okay, and I hope you know how many sense organs are there, so you should be ready with the answers for that also. It also controls and harmonizes all the voluntary actions in our body. That means voluntary actions means what? So therefore, example, okay, you have your various voluntary muscular activities like running, or even holding your book, or standing up, or sitting down, reading it, okay, moving around. So all these are your voluntary muscular activities, and all these are coordinated, and it is in harmony with one another. All these actions are in harmony with one another via our nervous system. There are various involuntary activities also. Okay, so there are various involuntary actions also, such as we have a breathing, or we have a beating of your heart without our thinking about them. Okay, so all these type of your actions are also controlled by our nervous system. So in case we are asked why there is need for the nervous system, so you should know that it keeps us informed about the outer world, controls and harmonizes all the voluntary actions, and it regulates involuntary actions such as your heartbeat, okay, without thinking about them. All right, so if we talk about what is the unit of this nervous system, now we all know that the nervous system, when we say, okay, it is actually an organ system, okay, and usually we know that these organ systems are formed of your organs, the organs are formed of your tissues, and these tissues are formed of your specialized cells. So what is this unit? Unit means the smallest unit of it, okay, so it is actually our nerve cell or neuron, which will then form the tissues and organs, and finally your nervous system. Okay, so our nervous system actually, it consists of your brain, spinal cord, sense organs. Usually these are the three main parts of a nervous system, but all these are made up of your, okay, simple cells, and those cells are known as your nerve cell or the neuron. Okay, so if we look at this diagram, okay, nerve cell or this neuron, can you see that you have a kind of a cell body out here? Then you can see from here one of the dendrite is becoming too long, it's extending down, you can see that, okay, and then finally it's terminating into branches out here. So this long one is your axon, and you can see from here they are just the cell bodies giving rise to a pointed structures out here, that is your dendrons, and these dendrons are giving rise to your fine, okay, hair-like structures out here, that is your dendrites. We can see out here, and we can see many labelings are done out here, like missile granule, nucleus, neurolemma, you have myelin sheath, nodes of Ranvier. So all these are what? So these are just the components of our nerve cell. Okay, so if we talk about our nerve cell, they are divided into three main parts, and usually those three main parts are your cell body, we have the dendrites, and we have our axons. So moving on to our cell body, if you look at the structure of this cell body out here, actually this round structure out here, don't look at these branches, just focus out here at the center, this part, it is actually the cell body. Okay, so therefore the cell body is also known as your perikaryon or cyton. You have to remember this. Okay, why? Because there is a nucleus present in this region. You can see the nucleus out there. So it contains a well-defined nucleus, and this nucleus is surrounded by a granular cytoplasm, and the various cell organelles, okay, is present out here, like mitochondria, Golgi apparatus, endoplasmic reticulum. These cell organelles are present in this particular cell body of this nerve cell. Okay, but one thing is absent, and what is that? Centrosome. You all know that in animal cells, okay, centrosomes and the centrioles plays a very important role in the division. Okay, cell division. So then they are not present. So therefore these nerve cells do not have the ability to divide. Please remember that nerve cells do not have the ability to divide. Okay, so there will be some questions going on in your mind which we'll be discussing in the Zoom class. So please be prepared for this particular section. That is, I'll be throwing you a question on why the nerve cells do not divide, okay, and you have to be able to justify your answers when you are talking about it. So please go around this concept. Okay, next part is our dendrites. So when we look at these structures, okay, out here, these are your dendrites, we can see. So actually this cell body, okay, is surrounded by your dendrites. So from where these dendrites are rising, so you know there are, okay, these are actually nothing but branch like structures, you can see, and they will originate, okay, from the cytoplasm of the cell body. So we can say that they are cytoplasmic projections. That means this cytoplasm is finally, okay, giving rise to cytoplasmic projections, okay, and that particular region from there where they rise, that is called a dendron, and these particular branches are known as our dendrites. So these are your dendrites, this region is the dendrons, and it's arising from a cytoplasm. So these are called cytoplasmic projections of the cell body. So what is the main function of these dendrites actually? So if we look at its main function, it is to conduct nerve impulses to the cyton. Cyton is a cell body. So that means these dendrites are attached to the other dendrites of the nerve cell. So from one nerve cell to the other, when the message is being passed, okay, first it will reach the cell body. From the cell body, it's conducted through the longest dendrite, that is your axon, and from axon to axon terminals, and then more further the information gets connected. Okay, so we will talk about all these things, okay, in more detail when we study it in this chapter, when we talk about the transmission of nerve impulse. But in this particular lecture, I'm just going to talk about and focus on the structure of the neuron. So we have already discussed the cell body, okay, which has all the different organelles. It has a nucleus, well-developed nucleus, granular cytoplasm. One organelle which is absent in the cell body is our centrosome. So therefore, nerve cells, they do not have the ability to divide, okay. Then we have our cytoplasmic projections, that is the second part of the neuron, that is our dendrites, which we talk about, and main function of the dendrite is to conduct nerve impulses to the cyton. Okay, now moving on to our next part, okay. This is our axon. So you can see that it is a long process from the cell body. So from the cell body, if we look at it out here in this first diagram, we can see it's a long process originating from the cell body, okay, and it is almost in a meter of your length, okay, and in most of the neurons, okay, this axon which you see out here, most of the neurons, okay, they are actually surrounded by an insulating sheath. All right. So they are surrounded by actually your insulating, okay, sheath, and this sheath is actually covered by an outermost sheath called your neuralema. So therefore we can say that this is our axon, this black part. This is a long extension from the cell body. Okay, now this is covered by your this region. This is another sheath out here. This sheath is called your myelin sheath, and this myelin sheath is further covered by an outer covering is there. You can see out here, that is your neuralema. And therefore you can see there are certain nodes in between this, okay, outer covering. Can you see that? So those are called your nodes of Ranvier. Okay, so some axons may have side branches that, okay, and that are called your collaterals. You will see that in some case of your nerve cells, okay, there are side branches, okay, from here. Another kind of axon branches there. So that is called your collateral. Please remember that. The end portions of the axons out here, when we look at it, okay, they have actually swollen end-like bulbs. Okay, they have swollen end-like bulbs, and these bulbs which are there, they are going to contain certain chemicals in them. Okay, so we look at this axon, okay, they have these your axon endings, these are, and at their endings there will be some bulb-like structures, okay. We will see that. So let's move on to this portion. So we can see that, so we have this long terminal thing out here. This is your axon, and in this axon these are made up of small cells, that is your Schwann cells. Okay, these cells that make up these axons are called as squamous cells. This axon is surrounded by a thin layer called a myelin sheath, which in most of the neurons is another which is surrounded by another protective covering that is called the neural lemma. So in this we are not showing the neural lemma. Okay, we showed the neural lemma in this region, and then this neural lemma at some points they form the nodes of Ranvier. You can see the nodes of Ranvier out here. Okay, and then when we look at this axon terminals, okay, we can see that the endings of these axon terminal, okay, they show a bulb like structure at these regions. Can you see this? So these bulb like regions, okay, they are going to contain certain chemicals. That means they are storing certain chemicals, and these chemicals are known as our neurotransmitters. Please remember this, they are known as our neurotransmitters. Okay, so what is this actually? Neurotransmitters, they are chemicals. It means these chemicals will help in the transmission of your nerve impulse. That means will carry the message. Okay, so whenever some message is being conducted through this dendrite to the cyton, that is cell body, and then to this axon, finally it reaches the axon terminals, causing these particular bulbs to release certain chemicals in this little gap. Okay, and from there is a slight gap, because and that gap is called your synaptic cleft. Okay, so therefore before these bulbs join with the dendrites of another neuron, okay, before they join with the dendrites of another neuron, okay, so that gap is present out there, small gap is there, they do not connect with one another. Okay, so there's small gap, so these neurotransmitters are released from this gap, in this gap, and this causes the transmission of the nerve impulse to the dendrites of another neuron. Again, if from that dendrite of the neuron it is transmitted to the cyton, then again to the axon terminals, again in that bulb, again neurotransmitter is released, and then again it will carry on this way. So it goes on and on. So the dendrites to the axons, then again to the dendrites of another neuron, then again to the axon of the same neuron, then again to the dendrites of another neuron. So the chain-like reaction. So these neurotransmitters which are released in this gap is called your synaptic cleft. Okay, so these neurotransmitters once released and then the message is transmitted to the another neuron, then these chemicals get destroyed. Otherwise what will happen? There will be stimulation, okay, for that particular message. For example, you are supposed to pick up the glass. Okay, you want to drink water. So what will happen if these neurotransmitters are not destroyed? So you will go on and on, picking up the glass, drinking water, picking up the glass, drinking water. It will go on and on. That message will be conducted. So therefore it's just for a second. So this is beautifully designed. Okay, so when we study the transmission of your nerve cell, we will be discussing on this nerve impulse transmission from one to the other, from one neuron to the other. Okay, and how does it take place, we'll study in more detail in our next lecture. All right, so this is the end of today's introduction, and the most important part is our nerve cell that we discussed and why there is need for the nervous system, okay, in our body. So I would like you all to focus on the diagram of this nerve cell, which is very, very important. Either in your ICAC you get to draw this diagram, or you are given this diagram and you're asked to label, and you're asked various questions from the different portions, or that is your structure of your neuron, that is your cell body, dendrites, and your axons. Okay, especially the synapse, the synaptic bulbs, synaptic cleft, the neurotransmitters. These are new words, so please focus on all these words properly.